We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
There are some puzzling developments tonight in the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie.
Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear was never meant to go public. They told me to delete everything or I'd be next. That's not a rumor. That's a direct quote from someone inside this case. Someone who claims the moment Brian Entin exposed that hidden link to Savannah Guthrie, everything behind the scenes went completely off the rails. Phones started ringing. Orders started flying. And then one move changed everything. Because according to multiple sources, Chris Nanos didn't just deny the report. He allegedly ordered action. Immediate action. And not the kind you announce on TV. We're talking about pressure, silence, and a move so aggressive that even people inside law enforcement are now quietly asking, did he just cross the line? But here's the part that should honestly make you uncomfortable. Right before this all exploded, Brian Entin reportedly uncovered something he wasn't supposed to find. Not just evidence, not just a theory, something personal. Something tied directly to Savannah Guthrie that completely flips the narrative of this entire case. And the second that information got too close to going public, everything went dark. Segments were pulled. Sources went silent. And now insiders are claiming there's a reason for that, and it's not what you think. So ask yourself this: why would a sheriff risk everything to shut one reporter down? And what secret is so dangerous that exposing it could bring this entire case crashing down overnight? Because trust me, what comes next only gets worse. The tension surrounding this case didn't just appear overnight. It's been building quietly for weeks, maybe even longer, beneath the surface where most people weren't looking. At the center of it all, you've got Chris Nanos, a sheriff who, on paper, has always maintained control. Calm in front of cameras, measured with his words, always presenting himself as the one keeping this investigation grounded. But behind that calm image, insiders have been hinting at something very different: pressure. The kind of pressure that doesn't just come from solving a case, but from managing what the public is allowed to know. Then you've got Brian Entin, and if you've been following high-profile investigations, you already know his reputation. He's not the type to back off. He doesn't just report what's handed to him. He digs. And in cases like this, that makes him dangerous. Not because he's reckless, but because he gets too close to things people would rather keep buried. And somehow, all of this collided with Savannah Guthrie. Now this is where things start to feel off. Because Savannah wasn't originally at the center of this investigation. She wasn't someone people were pointing fingers at. But slowly, her name started appearing in conversations behind the scenes. First quietly, then more directly, mentions of connections, old relationships, private communications that weren't meant to be public. At first, it didn't make headlines. It didn't explode online. It just sat there like a loose thread nobody wanted to pull, until Brian Entin pulled it. Sources say it started with a routine check. Just another angle, another detail that didn't quite line up. But the deeper he went, the more things started connecting in ways that didn't make sense on the surface. And that's when the tone shifted. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about a missing person case anymore. This became about influence, about who has the power to control a narrative and who doesn't. And according to insiders, the moment Entin began asking certain questions, specific questions involving Savannah, something changed inside the investigation itself. Calls that used to be returned suddenly weren't. Access that was once open became restricted. Even people within the system started choosing their words more carefully, like they were being watched. One source described it like this: it felt like we weren't just investigating a case anymore. We were stepping into something we weren't supposed to touch. And that's when Chris Nanos' role started coming under quiet scrutiny. Because publicly, everything looked normal. Press briefings continued. Updates were given. The case was moving forward, at least on the surface. But privately, according to multiple reports, frustration was building. Not just over the lack of answers, but over the growing attention on areas that weren't supposed to become the focus. Especially anything connected to Savannah. And then came the moment that changed everything. Brian Entin, after weeks of digging, reportedly prepared a segment that wasn't just another update, it was an exposure. something detailed, something specific, and most importantly, something that allegedly tied Savannah Guthrie to a piece of this case in a way that raised serious questions. Not accusations, but questions strong enough to shake the narrative. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Because just as that report was getting ready to go live, something happened behind the scenes that no one expected. Calls were made. Urgent ones. Sources claimed there was a sudden push to delay, to review, to reconsider what was about to be aired. And that's not unusual in journalism. But what was unusual was how far it went, because it didn't stop at hesitation. It escalated. Fast. One insider said the shift was immediate. The energy changed. It wasn't about accuracy anymore. It felt like damage control. And right in the middle of that storm, Chris Nanos, according to multiple accounts, he became directly involved. Not just as someone overseeing an investigation, but as someone reacting to what was about to be revealed. And that's where things started crossing into territory that people are now calling deeply concerning. Because when law enforcement starts focusing more on a reporter than the case itself, you have to ask why. And that's the question nobody seems willing to answer publicly. Why did Brian Entin's report trigger that kind of reaction? What exactly was in that segment that caused such a sudden shift? And how does Savannah Guthrie fit into all of this in a way that makes people this uncomfortable? Because whatever the truth is, it's not something they wanted you to see. And if what insiders are saying is even partially real, then this case isn't just complicated. It's controlled. Everything exploded the moment that segment was about to go live. According to multiple insider accounts, Brian Entin had finally reached a point where the pieces weren't just lining up, they were pointing somewhere specific. And not everyone was ready for where that direction was heading. It was late, the kind of late where newsrooms are quiet, lights dimmed, only a few screens glowing in the dark. But inside that silence, something big was about to break. Entin reportedly turned to his producer and said, "Once this airs, there's no going back." That wasn't just a dramatic line. It was a warning, because what he had in front of him wasn't just another update. It was a connection, a pattern, something tying Savannah Guthrie to a series of interactions that had never been publicly acknowledged before. Not direct involvement, but proximity, close enough to raise serious questions. And the moment the final script was approved, the call started. First one, then another, then back to back. Sources claim producers began receiving urgent requests to hold the segment. Not suggestions, requests, the kind that come with pressure behind them. One voice on the line reportedly said, "You need to stop this, right now." But Entin didn't stop. In fact, that only pushed him further. Because the more resistance he felt, the more convinced he became that he was onto something bigger than anyone expected. And then it escalated. Within minutes, according to insiders, someone inside the station received a message that didn't just raise eyebrows. It sent shockwaves through the entire room. Sheriff's office is not happy. This will get serious. Now at this point, things should have de-escalated. That's how it usually works. A little pushback, maybe a delay, maybe a rewrite. But that's not what happened here. Instead, it went the other direction. Fast. Sources allege that Chris Nanos himself became aware of the segment before it aired. And his reaction wasn't calm, wasn't measured, it was immediate. And this is where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Because instead of addressing the claims publicly, instead of preparing a response, insiders are saying he made a decision that crossed into dangerous territory. A decision involving Brian Entin directly. One source described the moment like this. It wasn't about correcting information anymore, it felt like shutting someone down. And then came the alleged order. Now, let's be clear, this part is what has everyone talking. Multiple sources are claiming that behind closed doors, discussions started happening about taking action against Entin. Not just discrediting him, but something stronger. Something that would stop him from pushing forward. And when those words started spreading inside the building, people froze. Because this wasn't normal. This wasn't media pressure. This was something else. One insider reportedly whispered, "Did he just say arrest?" No one answered, but no one denied it either. And that silence, that's what made it real. Because at the exact same time this was happening, something even stranger was unfolding. The segment, ready to air, fully produced, suddenly disappeared from the rundown. Gone. No explanation. No announcement. Just pulled. And when staff started asking questions, they were met with the same response. Not right now. Not it's inaccurate. Not we need to verify. Just not right now, which only made things worse. Because behind the scenes, and it wasn't backing down. In fact, sources say he became more aggressive in pushing for the story to go public. More direct, more vocal. Almost like he knew that whatever he had uncovered was being buried in real time. And then he allegedly received a message. No caller ID. No official statement. Just a warning. You're getting too close. That was it. Short, cold, direct. And from that moment on, everything changed. Because now, this wasn't just a story about a case. This became a battle. A battle between a reporter trying to expose something and a system that, according to insiders, was doing everything it could to stop him. But here's where the first real twist hits. And this is the part that flips everything upside down. Because while all eyes were on Entin and the pressure building around him, a second leak quietly surfaced. And it didn't come from him. It came from someone else. Someone who had access to internal communications. And what that leak allegedly revealed wasn't just about Savannah. It hinted at something deeper. Something involving multiple people connected to this case. Not just one name, a network. And if that leak is real, then Brian Entin wasn't the problem. He was a beginning. So now the question isn't just why Chris Nanos reacted the way he did. The real question is, what else is about to come out? Because if one report caused this much chaos, then whatever's coming next might be impossible to contain. The moment that second leak surfaced, everything went from tense to completely uncontrollable. Because this time, it didn't stay behind closed doors. It hit the internet. Fast. Within minutes, screenshots, allegedly pulled from internal communications, started circulating across forums, private groups, and then suddenly mainstream social media. At first, people didn't even believe it was real. The names were too big. The implications were too serious. But then one post changed everything. A now viral thread claimed. Multiple insiders confirm this isn't just about Savannah. There's a circle, and they've been protecting it. That single line lit a fire. Because suddenly, the narrative shifted from one controversial exposure to something that looked a lot bigger. A pattern, a system, something coordinated. And people started digging. Clips of Brian Entin's previous reports were rewatched. Old interviews involving Savannah, Guthrie, were pulled back into circulation. Even past statements from Chris Nanos were dissected frame by frame, with users pointing out what they called inconsistencies, hesitations, and things that didn't add up. One user posted, "Go back to his last press conference. Look at his face when Savannah's name comes up. That's not normal." Another wrote, "Why is everyone trying so hard to shut this down? What are we missing?" And just like that, the internet did what it always does. It turned suspicion into momentum. But while the public was spiraling into theories and speculation, something even more serious was happening behind the scenes. According to sources, internal panic started setting in. Emergency meetings, rapid calls, messages being sent late into the night. Because now, it wasn't just one reporter pushing a story. It was everywhere. And the more it spread, the harder it became to control. One insider described a situation like this. It felt like a leak inside a leak. Every time we tried to contain something, another piece would surface. And then came the reveal that took this to another level. Buried inside those circulating screenshots was a single line that people almost missed at first. A reference to a restricted file. Something that, according to the leak, was never supposed to be accessed without clearance. But here's the part that changed everything. That file allegedly contained communication logs. Not rumors, not assumptions. Logs, dates, times, contacts. And according to what's being whispered, those logs showed repeated indirect links between individuals connected to this case and someone tied to Savannah Circle. Not direct proof of wrongdoing, but enough to raise one terrifying question. Was this all just coincidence? Or was something being quietly managed behind the scenes from the very beginning? Because if those logs are real, and that's still a big if, then this isn't just about exposure anymore. This is about control. Control of information. Control of narrative. And possibly control what the public is allowed to know. But just as people started focusing on that file, it vanished. Threads deleted. Accounts suspended. Posts wiped like they were never there. And that's when the fear really kicked in. Because information doesn't just disappear like that, unless someone powerful wants it gone. So now, the situation is more dangerous than ever. You've got a reporter being pressured, a sheriff under scrutiny, a media figure caught in the middle, and a leak that may have revealed just enough to shake everything, but not enough to fully explain it. And that leaves us with one chilling thought. If they're willing to erase this much, what else have they already hidden? Just when it felt like the situation couldn't get any more intense, something happened that nobody was prepared for. Because while the internet was still trying to process the leaked screenshots, a new audio clip started circulating. At first, it was low quality, distorted, hard to even understand. Most people ignored it, but then someone cleaned it up, and what they claimed it revealed sent shockwaves through everyone following this story. A voice, allegedly linked to someone inside the investigation, can be heard saying, "Keep his name out of it. If this gets tied back, we're all done." That one sentence changed everything. Because now, this wasn't just about leaks or speculation anymore. This sounded like fear, real fear, within minutes. The clip spread across platforms. People started comparing the voice to known recordings. Some said it matched. Others denied it. But the debate itself only made things bigger. And then came the reactions. One post went viral saying, "This isn't a cover-up anymore. This is damage control at the highest level." Another wrote, "Why does it sound like they're protecting someone?" And that one question, started tearing the narrative apart. Because suddenly, people weren't just asking what happened. They were asking who's being protected. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, sources claimed the pressure on Brian Entin reached a breaking point. Calls weren't just requests anymore. They became warnings. Direct, unfiltered. One insider revealed that Entin was told, "You're crossing into territory you don't understand." But instead of backing off, he reportedly doubled down. And that's when things got even more dangerous. Because another piece of information surfaced, this time from someone claiming to have access to internal movement logs tied to the case. According to that claim, there was unusual activity recorded on the same night everything went dark. Vehicles that weren't logged officially. Movements that didn't match the timeline given to the public. Unverified? Yes. But explosive? Absolutely. And here's the part that made people stop and think. Those movements allegedly aligned with the exact window where the camera feed was cut and where Nancy disappeared. Now combine that with the earlier leak, the communication logs, the audio clip, and suddenly this doesn't look like random chaos anymore. It looks coordinated. It looks planned. And it looks like there are pieces of this story that were never meant to be connected. But just as all of this was building momentum, another twist hit. Because sources are now claiming that someone close to the investigation, someone who had been quietly cooperating, has suddenly gone completely silent. No contact, no responses, gone. And the timing? Right after the audio clip went viral, right after the log started spreading, right after the pressure reached its peak. Coincidence? Or something else? Because if people connected to this case are starting to disappear from communication, then this isn't just about secrets anymore. This is about risk. Real risk. And now the biggest question isn't just what happened, it's who's still willing to talk. And who might be next to go silent. And just when it felt like fear had completely taken over the narrative, something happened that flipped the entire situation yet again. Because this time, it came from inside. Late last night, a message began circulating among a very small group of reporters. People who have been closely following every twist in this case. It wasn't posted publicly. It wasn't meant to go viral. But it did anyway. The message was short, almost too simple. Check the internal log from February 1st. It was altered. That was it. No name. No explanation. Just that one line. At first, it didn't seem like much. But then, someone actually looked into it. And what they claim they found is what's now pushing this case into its most controversial phase yet. According to multiple online discussions, there appears to be a discrepancy in the official timeline records from the night everything happened. Small at first glance, just minutes shifted here and there. But when those changes are lined up against everything else, the cameras shut down, the pacemaker signal, the alleged vehicle movements, those minutes start to matter. A lot, because if the timeline was altered, even slightly, it raises a question that no one is comfortable answering. Why would anyone need to change it? Was it a mistake? Or was something being adjusted to make the story fit? And this is where things get even more unsettling. Because one user, claiming to have knowledge of how these logs are handled, posted this. Internal logs don't just get edited without clearance, and definitely not during an active case. That post alone triggered thousands of reactions. People started comparing old statements, rewatching press briefings, trying to catch any moment where the timeline might have shifted publicly without anyone noticing. And some say they found it. Clips began circulating showing slight differences in how events were described from one briefing to another. Nothing obvious, nothing dramatic, but enough to make people question everything. And once that doubt sets in, it spreads fast. Now here's where the situation becomes even more intense. Because while all of this was unfolding publicly, sources claim that internally, things are starting to fracture. Tension between departments. Disagreements over what should be shared and what shouldn't. And according to one insider, there are now individuals who are no longer on the same page about how this case is being handled. They're not aligned anymore, the source said. Some people want everything out, others are trying to keep it contained. Contained. That word keeps coming up. Contained information. Contained leaks. Contained narratives. But the problem is, this story isn't staying contained anymore. And then, just when people thought they had seen every twist, another claim surfaced. This one even more shocking. A post suggesting that a third party, someone not previously mentioned in any reports, may have had access to both the physical location and the digital activity tied to the case. Not confirmed, not proven, but enough to ignite a completely new wave of speculation. Because if that's true, then this isn't just about one person. It's bigger. Much bigger. And suddenly, everything that's happened, the pressure on Brian Entin, the alleged reaction from Chris Nanos, the growing questions around Savannah Guthrie, it all starts to look like pieces of a much larger puzzle, one that nobody fully understands yet. But here's the part that should really make you pause. Right after this new claim started gaining traction, it started disappearing. Posts removed, accounts restricted, search results suddenly harder to find. Almost like something or someone is trying to slow this down. But it's too late for that. Because once people start asking questions like this, they don't stop. And now, the biggest question of all is hanging in the air. If the timeline was altered, if sources are going silent, if new names are being pulled into this, then what is the full story we're not being told? Because whatever it is, it's still being hidden. And it's getting harder to keep it that way. You're out of messages with the most advanced free model. Responses will use a less powerful model until your usage resets after 9:02 p.m. Upgrade before you leave. You need to think about this carefully, because this case is changing every single hour, and every new detail seems to raise even more disturbing questions. What do you honestly believe is happening here? Is this all just coincidence? Or is there something much deeper being hidden from the public? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because your opinion matters more than ever in cases like this. Don't forget to like this video if you want more updates, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because trust me, this story is far from over.